Here's Sharon Field of the FHWA Office of Civil Rights.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Thanks.
Great. Welcome to the FHWA ADA Virtual Peer Exchange on Transition Plan Implementation. This is our kickoff webinar of the series, and we're doing it to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the passage of the ADA, which occurred just this past weekend on July 26th. This webinar series will highlight some best practices and innovative approaches that are being used by state DOTs to implement their ADA transition plans. Today we will hear from Sarah Wade from the Ohio DOT and Cesar Barreto from the DC DOT. And today's focus is going to be agency-wide engagement and leadership support. To start us off today, we are honored to have FHWA Executive Director Tom Everett joining us. In his role as Executive Director for the Federal Highway Administration, Tom manages the daily operations of the agency and its personnel. He advises the administrator, deputy administrator, and senior officials throughout the department on the agency's programs and priorities. Prior to that, Tom was the Associate Administrator for the FHWA Office of Infrastructure. In this capacity, he provided leadership, policy direction, and oversight to guide the administration and implementation of the Federal Aid Highway Program. Prior to becoming Associate Administrator, Tom served as the Office Director for the Office of Program Administration, where he guided stewardship and oversight of the Federal Aid Program. Tom is a registered professional engineer and holds a master's degree in civil engineering from Johns Hopkins University and a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Rutgers University. Tom, I'd like to turn it over to you now for a few words.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate the introduction, and hello, everyone. It is a special year. This year, we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, which was signed into law on July 26, 1990. Since its passage, this landmark legislation has helped increase access for people with disabilities in transportation, employment, housing, public services, education, public accommodations, communication, recreation, and health services. State and local governments have made great strides in making the transportation system accessible to all citizens through ADA transition plans. I want to start by thanking the state CEOs for their support and leadership in the development of their state's ADA transition plan. This is not only a civil rights professional responsibility, it is a partnership between disciplines that advance ADA and removes barriers. Without your support with resources, engineering staff, planning professionals, civil rights professionals, and other transportation professionals, none of this would be possible. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires public entities with 50 or more employees to have an ADA transition plan. This means every state is required to have an ADA transition plan to address accessibility barriers it found during its self-evaluation. The FHWA Office of Civil Rights has developed this 5-session webinar series to highlight the best practices and emerging technologies that are being used by state DOTs. This kickoff to the webinar series is entitled Agency-Wide Engagement. Having supportive leadership and buy-in from departments across the agency will lead to successful transition plan implementation. Today we are going to hear from the Ohio Department of Transportation and the District Department of Transportation on their efforts to implement their transition plan and how leadership support and agency-wide engagement contributed to those efforts. Thank you to the participants of the webinar today and to all of you that are leading efforts in your states to remove barriers and provide access to persons with disabilities. Please continue moving forward with your work, and through this series we hope to reinforce the steps you are taking and provide you with new ideas and colleagues you can contact. Now I'll turn it back over to Sharon to introduce our presenters.
Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate it. Sorry, everyone, for the technical difficulties. I'd like now to introduce our presenters. First, we will hear from Cesar Barreto. Cesar is the ADA coordinator for the DC Department of Transportation. He is a native of Puerto Rico and has a background in civil engineering from the University of Puerto Rico. He assists his agency in the development of designs and ensuring the implementation of accessibility guidelines into services and programs. His main responsibility is the development and tracking of the ADA transition plan. Prior to joining DDOT, Cesar served as a transportation engineer at the Maryland State Highway Administration, where he managed and designed multiple transportation improvement projects. I'll also introduce Sarah Wade. Sarah has over 20 years of state service and joined the Ohio Department of Transportation in 2006, where she serves as the ADA 504 Program Manager in ODOT's Division of Opportunity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Sarah holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and an MBA from Mount Vernon Nazarene University. She earned a master's of business in operational excellence from the Max M. Fisher College of Business at The Ohio State University in 2012. Please welcome our presenters, and we will start with Cesar. Thank you, Cesar.
Thank you, Sharon. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that everybody can hear me. Sharon, can you confirm?
Yes, I hear you. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you. Once again, good afternoon, everybody. As mentioned previously, my name is Cesar Barreto. I am the ADA coordinator with the District Department of Transportation. During this presentation, I would like to show not only the process that we took to develop and implement the ADA transition plan, but I also wanted to talk on our many efforts that we have within our agency to engage the entire divisions and implement ADA in our public's right-of-way. It wasn't an effort. It can be called an ADA transition plan or an implementation plan without a joint effort and support from upper management. I would like to take advantage and thank multiple DDOT members, all the DDOT members, District Department of Transportation members that have joined us in this webinar, and I want to say thank you personally, because without them, the ADA transition plan would not be what it is now. From DDOT would not be where it is now. Moving on the slides, I hope that everybody can see the slides and they can move on. DDOT's ADA transition plan took around 4 years to develop. Through every stage taken, a new division within the agency got involved to ensure that ADA was included in the language. We started in 2012. It took us around 4 to 6 years to fully develop a plan to submit to Federal Highway and have a proper implementation of it. In 2012, when we started, we started with the inventory of barriers. It started with the asset management division. And then it moved on after the comprehensive inventory of barriers. We want to make sure that we grab a lot of data, as much data as we can. After that, in 2012 to 2014, we moved to creating our own self-evaluation of our policies and procedures, understanding every single step that we needed inside our policies and procedures to ensure ADA compliance, whether it was in the planning phase and design phase of a project, whether it was in our own protocols and procedures on how we maintain and alter our services, our programs, and our activities. All of those aspects were evaluated, but along in conjunction with our policy planning team, our policy and sustainability divisions, and our Office of General Counsel, along with the Civil Rights Division. During 2014 and 2016, where we have a more comprehensive, more of a reporting feature, this is where we decided to take it up to the public and engage with the public and develop an advisory group for the transition plan. But I think we took it a step further, and we decided to take it a step further and also include our own employees and see how they feel about the ADA as well. This is where we brought the Public Information Division and our Community Engagement Division. In 2016, we submitted our plan to Federal Highway. It got accepted. And since then, we continue to provide upgrades to our inventory of barriers and also to implement on a yearly basis, because this is a living document. We treat it like that. As the phases to build the ADA transition plan went by, me as an ADA coordinator saw myself as a project manager role within the projects to the divisions, not only explaining how to create the ADA transition plan, but ensuring that the process was there to make a transition plan a yearly cycle, a living document. As an outcome, we created an implementation process cycle for the agency. And as you can see in your screen, we go on a living cycle on a yearly basis, and all of them touch each other at some point. We have our reporting feature, we have our inventory, we have our priority schema, we also have next locations that we want to do, but also we have a construction and budget allocation. Without this cycle process having place, we cannot proceed, we cannot have a proper implementation of our ADA transition plan. And this takes all the agencies that involve construction, all the agencies within the divisions to have a better performance, to have better communication, IT. We brought every single division that we can to make it happen. As far as the inventory of barriers, the inventory of barriers was a key element phase, and it keeps evolving within the implementation of technology. Our engineers are now able to see the data through interactive maps and are able to understand what improvements are needed prior to developing design and also provides preliminary costs to as well. As you get, within time, we were able to evolve our ADA inventory of barriers. We made modifications to it because we wanted to improve how we communicate to our engineers and planners, but also how we receive the data and provide the reporting feature at the end. So you can see the difference here on how we went from our foot on ground and having only 4 inspectors on the field in 2012 to having an entire team in the office collecting data and providing information back to us, whether it's from a service request made by a resident or a visitor to just receiving the information from design teams or consultant teams, or backwards, we providing that information as well. We made sure that this data collection just doesn't stay there once we finish. It just works and interacts for everyone. At the same time, quality assurance, we went from a 3-tier to a 9-tier. That was an ongoing effort that we had with our IT team within 2012 and present. Every time that we see evolution on mapping systems, on our GIS, on software, interactive softwares, we were able to implement. When we do asset collections at the beginning, we started doing every single asset that we see on the field. We collected around 39 assets. Now we collect 7 assets. We focus on the pedestrian access route. We focus on connectivity. Same thing with priority schema. We didn't have a consideration of priority. Now we have a comprehensive priority schema that relays the message and let us know where the issues are. Along with technology, again, the inventory of barriers also provides me as an ADA coordinator with information of improvements and main issues. With this comprehensive inventory of barriers, DDOT is able to identify intersections and corridors with the most issues as well. This information is passed along to our planners, to our designers, to our project delivery teams, to our maintenance teams that are currently working outside on the field, and let them aware where the next budget needs to be allocated or where their main focus needs to be when it comes to a corridor needing issues to be addressed. When it comes to the priority schema, we decided to divide the priority schema based on use and condition. Condition we get from the attributes collected on the field, but the use we get with the interactive maps nowadays in ArcGIS. This is where our IT team came and played along. The IT team, our communications team and IT team receive a lot of information. They know where the locations are, and using the interactive map, we're able to locate the condition of the assets that we collected along with the locations. So we decided to create this priority schema in relation to places that people are, in addition to places the condition of the assets are. That way we are able to address the issue in a faster manner or in a timely manner. When it comes to construction and budgeting, I am really happy that our chief engineer was able to assist with this high demand of construction. All of our ADA projects, all of our design, all of our projects, whether it's sidewalk improvements, involved sidewalk improvements or corridor improvements or asphalt or repaving, have a say yes or no from the ADA coordinator. Me as an ADA coordinator, I am able to evaluate all the construction happening on the field, taking a look at plans. And there's a short story behind it. When I got into DDOT in 2014, the first thing that happened was a meeting with all the engineers where the chief engineer announced that I was the ADA coordinator and that he will not approve any construction plans or design plans without me having a sign-off on it. Those are type of improvements that we can do within the agency with a little take that can make ADA improvements happen on the field. In addition to that part of the construction and budgeting, with the data collection that was developed, we were able to implement those with livability studies and maintenance work, and also with the call for projects. Therefore, we're able to budget for those, address inventory barriers and physical barriers and remove them in a timely manner. A key part of any ADA transition plan is the public engagement. We in DDOT conduct public outreach and engagement with district disability advocacy communities, as long as also the bids and our partners. We also, for the transition plan, we develop pop-up events in which we receive a significant amount of input on residents in regards to the public right-of-way and what was their top concern. This was a joint effort with multiple members of the agency. We spread the word. We took every single project available that had public outreach to ensure that we grabbed that data, we grabbed that information, and we were able to implement it in our ADA transition plan, along with our own separate ADA transition plan public outreach, in which we had boards. We developed boards with all the issues regarding a curb ramp, all the issues regarding a sidewalk, all the issues regarding a crossing, and we let the residents and visitors let us know, the public know which one of those issues within the sidewalk was the biggest issue between all of them. And we keep going to this specific scenario, and we keep doing this specific tabulation because it also lets us know where the mental priority goes. It lets us know our priority schema improves every year with this information as well. We want to make sure to establish 508 compliance on DDOT websites, and we also provide alternate formats. The public engagement is always ongoing. We will always be available to do our public engagement and interact for the ADA transition plan. Usually our reports, we report public right-of-way accessibility issues. We get reports for public right-of-way accessibility issues within 311. All our residents are able to provide that information. We implement it in our ADA transition plan, and we also encourage people to join the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council, which is a major initiative for persons with disabilities, along with the age-friendly DC transportation domain and the Vision Zero DC. some of the successes of implementing a living transition plan, some of the successes for the ADA transition plan was implementing a living transition plan. We were able to transfer information on a yearly basis. We're able to create that cycle. We're able to move along every year with information, with data, with public outreach, with the collection of inventory barriers, which the accomplishment of inventory barriers. And also, we're able to innovate a software where it's easy access to inventory and support the projects. As long as we can support the projects and the agencies as ADA coordinator and Civil Rights Division, we're able to promote a successful ADA transition plan. We had construction technical assistance, and me as an ADA coordinator and my knowledge in engineering, I am able to go on the field and create red line revisions and create assistance and support on construction sites to ensure that once we build it, it's compliant. It's more of a one try fix it all scenario rather than oh, we build it, we got to rebuild it again. We're trying to avoid doing the second run going to project sites, which is something that the maintenance team has done a really good job, and something that the staff training comes into place. We do a lot of training. At least we try to focus our training on ADA on a bi-yearly basis along with Federal Highway. But we have the training available on a yearly basis with me as an ADA coordinator, and I focus the training for each division depending on the needs of that division. And policy development. That was a huge success within the amount of years that it took to develop the ADA transition plan. The policy was the cleanup. We were able to clean up our policy and procedures, and we are able to have a successful ADA transition plan now because of it. Some of the challenges that we had of introducing the ADA transition plan, and we always will have some challenges, and is providing compliance due to urban aspect of the district. As you may know, the district has multiple aspects and multiple partners within the public right-of-way, such as Architect of the Capitol, National Park Services, to name a few. But it's all about collaboration. It's all about making sure that everybody's well communicated of what's going on and what is the proposed work. So we do have historic preservation and right-of-ways. That's always going to be a challenge when you're implementing an ADA transition plan. But one more time, it's all about opening the communication, opening that engagement with the other divisions and partners. Sorry. We will always have opportunities for improvements. And now with the COVID-19 hitting the world and the pandemic, we always need to know how to increase our public outreach with social media and technology, along with a Section 508 compliance. We want to make sure that we're compliant, but we're trying to get the information out sometimes, and we forget about the compliance. We want to make sure that the compliance is the first piece that we look before heading out from our IT team, our technology standpoint of view. Before it goes out, we evaluate. We always will have those opportunities for improvements when it comes to construction sites on technical and feasibilities. You will always have that location that you're technical and feasible, but we will do the maximum extent feasible to address the issue. And as long as our maintenance teams and our project delivery teams are aware that they're doing the best that they can to provide that compliance. I would like to say thank you, and I think I will turn it over to Sharon. To Sharon so she can introduce Sarah.
Thank you, Cesar. Great conversation. We will be holding questions until the end. We're going to have a question and answer period. But right now we'd like to hear from Sarah. And Sarah, please take it away. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sharon and Cesar, so much. And I wanted to start by thanking Sharon for the opportunity to present today. There we go. So as was mentioned, my name is Sarah Wade, and I am the Ohio Department of Transportation's ADA 504 Program Manager. And my part of the presentation is entitled A Collaborative Approach to ADA Compliance. And a lot of the things that I'm going to be touching on, Cesar also mentioned as well. So we definitely have quite a few similarities. But I also wanted to share that the unofficial subtitle of my presentation is How to Win Friends and Influence Engineers. So, and all of this I will caveat by saying none of this would have been possible but for the support that I had from my leadership. My administrator, Kimberly Watson, not only saw the vision, but also trusted me to implement it. So I had to start with that statement. So first, I recognized that we had a problem with the program. ADA programs often have been housed in state DOTs in separate civil rights units. Thus, it can make it appear to some as if the ADA responsibilities are only responsibilities of those civil rights areas, not the entire agency or other areas. It's also common that ADA coordinators have several other job responsibilities and wear other hats within the agency. This can sometimes lead to a disconnect in the laws, regulations, implementation of programs, and practices, and ultimately can have an adverse effect on the ADA program and the services provided as a whole. So the question is, how do I fix that? And the answer is, I can't. We have to fix it. And the first question is, when do we need to accomplish this? And I think this pretty much sums it up. It was a good time to change yesterday, but today is a good day too. There's no time like the present, and this definitely holds true for ADA laws and regulations. And as has been mentioned previously several times, these are not new laws or new regulations. As of a couple of days ago, the ADA Act is 30 years old. So I hear a lot from local municipalities that, their assets and their program is grandfathered in. And I would just like to state that there is no grandfather clause in the ADA, but the law is flexible. But there is a safe harbor provision that I'm sure some of you are aware of, but there are stipulations to the safe harbor provision. So, like possibly one of the visuals got cut off of this slide at the beginning, so sorry about that, but this should be entitled Changes in Regs, in the regulations. So there have been changes to the ADA regulations and specifications over the years. However, the heart of the regulations have had minimal changes. The same is true for Ohio DOT's internal policies and procedures. We have remained the same, which has resulted in a poor output of product. But the general opinion within Ohio DOT was that we were doing just fine, or at least okay. Or at best, not many were actually complaining, so that meant we must be doing okay. But we knew that that simply wasn't true. So how do we fix it? And when the ADA program manager job responsibilities landed on my desk, I had a decision to make. Would I continue to keep the program afloat, which means not doing more than had been done previously, because simply that's all the time that I had, or would I decide to take a deep dive and explore what opportunities had been missed and try to discover the potential, or possibly a combination of both? So what did I do? Honestly, at first, the minimum. I was simply overwhelmed and did not have the hours in the day to do more than what had currently always been done. And how much was that? Not much. I had a ton of other job duties and a staff of 0. and it seemed as if I was being tasked with more and more each day. And with this being such a daunting task, there really was no clear starting point. Without a clear starting point, this just kept getting pushed further down on my list every day. But slowly, I began having conversations with our FHWA division office, talking to counterparts at other state DOTs, talking to counterparts within our internal state DOT, and slowly worked up to a deep dive. But one thing is for certain, you simply cannot fix it by yourself. You must be a champion for the program, a champion for the change, and a facilitator of those conversations. But you cannot do it by yourself because that isn't working. You need help, you need support, and you need to keep working even when you are told no. And you will hear no a great deal. First, I found the stakeholders, the key players, and started asking questions. Had the conversations, informing them that changes had to be made. We were being pushed in that direction. And that with or without their help, there are processes that we had to change as a state DOT in order to fulfill FHWA's reporting requirements. But I made the proposal as though we would like to work together as a team to find out the solutions that work best for everyone. Because I didn't want to make decisions or try to create solutions for areas that was not in my jurisdiction. I know that that would not be sustainable. For example, I'm not an engineer, and I knew I could not make changes to a curb ramp standard drawing. And if I tried, any changes would be ineffective, lost, or simply ignored. The relationships that I've developed within my agency have been crucial. I previously conducted Title VII investigations and trainings across the state in our agency. I also process ADA reasonable accommodations for applicants and employees. And as such, I've developed relationships with many coworkers in lots of areas across the state. Those relationships have allowed me to not only develop the relationships with people, but also in their offices, but also gain an understanding of the work that they do and how their work could potentially overlap with my work or have an impact downstream. But once you get someone to agree to having those conversations, you ask them what issues they are experiencing in these overlapping areas, and then we try to incorporate solutions to their issues along with improved ADA compliance. That way there's a possible positive takeaway for them as well right off the bat. So where do I start? That's a question I hear a lot. And my answer is simply anywhere. I understand it can be overwhelming, but find that person that not only will listen and be willing to help, but that will help you make the connections needed. But wherever you start, my advice is to know your audience. Speak their language. When you go to human resources to talk about an issue, we all know better than to inundate them with statistics, math, charts, and graphs, right? But when you go to a meeting with engineers, they want all the math, all the statistics, all the data points. They want to know how you gathered the data, who gathered it, and what the weather was like the day you gathered it. They're very data-driven, so speak their language. But in order to get that data, you're going to need help. In my particular situation, the data didn't belong to me, and it didn't even exist if it did belong. Also, it's been my experience that engineers most likely across the board appreciate baked goods, so I routinely incorporated those into meetings. So where did we begin? And for ODOT, we weren't exactly sure where to begin. We had ideas, but we didn't have that data or concrete information to back those assumptions up. So we had to get the data first. In our case at ODOT, very little data existed on ADA assets in the rights of way. We were very data rich, but we were very data poor in that area. So first we had to fix that. Somehow I was able to get the attention of our chief data officer and his team of data magicians, as I like to call them. And that started a 2-year-long process of creating a data collection method for all of ODOT's assets in the rights-of-way. Once the data collection application was complete and a plan was devised to physically collect all the assets, to physically collect and assess all of our assets, the data was analyzed, and then, as I like to call it, magic happened. I was finally on someone else's radar in a good way. I actually had started getting visitors to my desk, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. I stayed the course, and I have been very appreciative. This has been a group collaboration. I understand that this isn't my project because you cannot do this by yourself. You will need help, and you also don't want to make it appear as if you want to delegate the project away and make it someone else's problem. I was careful not to fall in love with my idea. I knew I needed help and insight from the civil engineers and the data team. I had an idea of the output I needed in order to fulfill the reporting requirements for FHWA, but I had no idea what I wanted or needed it to look like exactly. That's a blessing and a curse with the federal ADA regulations. They allow you flexibility, but then again, they allow you flexibility. The data team took care of the reporting piece of the project. We talked about what was needed so frequently that they had a good idea of how to give me what I needed in a way that would serve us well for a long time. A clear and easy to understand dashboard. I've asked for a few small changes to the dashboard along the way and some of the reports themselves just to make the process easier and more clear for everyone. But we ended up with a workable solution that wasn't exactly my idea. It's actually way better than any idea that I had, and it accomplishes the desired outcome. So this is an example of our data solution. We call it Collector ADA Rights-of-Way. This graphic just demonstrates the types of specific attributes collected for curb ramps in the picture collected. And this next slide shows an example of the data dashboard. It's very clear and easy to read, and it's one of the biggest accomplishments of the project. Everyone in the data collection team loved the dashboard so much. Once other asset owners saw the dashboard for ADA Rights-of-Way, they asked for the same or similar dashboard to be incorporated into their module. Next is just a short snippet of one of the reports that's produced from the application as well. But like I said, data doesn't lie. At first we had very little data, but once we were forced to look at the data, there really was no choice to be made. This data was collected over a 90-day period, and during that period, each asset was physically visited, measured, assessed, photographed, and cataloged into the application by our crew. Once the data collection was completed, we sent the data to our roadway engineering administrator. That's where I talked about the magic happening. He saw the data, and he's the one that showed up in my office. I was in disbelief. Could you imagine an engineer walked into Equal Opportunity? It almost sounds like the beginning of a good joke. But anyway, he almost immediately called a meeting. During that meeting, he invited all the high-level engineers from across our agency, and he made a very powerful statement. He said, "We really suck at this, and we need to do better. We have to do better." And from there, it just snowballed. More meetings were held, committees were formed, subgroups had meetings, policies were updated, standard drawings as of July 17th have been changed, a new waiver process was instituted, and we're moving into a positive direction towards real sustainable solutions and real change with not only the way ODOT does business, but hopefully a difference will be seen in Ohio's DOT's end product of real improved accessibility for all Ohioans. But please understand, you may not make a great deal of people happy at first. Hard decisions will have to be made, and you might be very unpopular for a time. But if you stay the course and do not lose sight of the original intent, which is to improve accessibility for all, great progress will be made. And thank you. I will now hand it back over to Sharon.
Thank you very much, Sarah. We really appreciate that. I want to just apologize for the audio issues that we've been having. We can see that some of you are having audio difficulties. We will definitely have that figured out before our next webinar next month. We do want to have a question and answer session at this time. I know a lot of the question and answer pod is taken up with the audio issues. If anyone has a substantive question that they would like to pose for Sarah or Caesar or both, please put them into the Q&A pod at this time. In the meantime, I can throw out a question for both of them, and they can both respond to that while we're waiting for other questions to come in. Can you tell us what your biggest challenge has been on this road of transition plan implementation and how you and your agency are addressing that challenge? Why don't we start with Sarah?
Okay, thank you. I think one of our biggest challenges is Ohio is a home rule state. So Ohio DOT is responsible for its assets in the rights of way, which is state-owned and maintained roadways. So local municipalities have their own responsibilities inside their incorporated areas. And I think right now, because a lot of those changes that I talked about just happened to our standard drawings and design tolerances and those sorts of things on the rights of way side just rolled out last week or a week and a half ago. And we're getting a little pushback from our local municipalities who have been wanting to go ahead with projects that don't include funding to correct deficient curb ramps. So that is a challenge that we're having right now. We are attempting to address it in a couple of different ways, but I think our relationships with those local municipalities have helped them have an understanding that we are all trying to work together and trying to find ways to do it. So I think the relationship building is critical to those problem-solving solutions.
Thank you. Caesar, how about you? Biggest challenge and how you're addressing it?
I think I'm going to answer this as honest as I can, and I think I believe right now I'm going through my biggest challenge as an ADA coordinator, and that is being in the district, being in a city with development of multimodal aspects. Currently, the guidelines are very open and fluent regarding what to do in X, Y, Z and how to provide compliance. But there's no additional language other than the flexibility spatial provided by Federal Highway regarding design capabilities outside on the field in multimodal aspect. Now the district has a streetcar, we have buses, we have electric scooters, capital bike share, we have multiple bike lanes. We have newly developed pickup drop-off zones. we're doing sidewalk extensions. So how to provide compliance. The biggest challenge that we're having right now is how to provide compliance and how to let the engineers aware they need to provide more compliance within these multimodal aspects. My approach to regarding this issue is being involved with the design team, with the engineers, with the consultants, and the program managers. Do not leave the table without providing information. If we are there from the get-go, if we are there from the start, they cannot ignore that they need to provide compliance. It's one of the biggest aspects that we have, that we're trying to turn the city into more multimodal aspect, the district into a more multimodal aspect. And we can familiarize ourselves with implementing this in other cities, but the district has some small constraints because of being the capital and absorbing multiple federal aid entities along the way.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. We're starting to get some questions into the Q&A pod, so I'm going to read some of those and ask you both to respond. The first question I have here is, do your ADA transition plans include standalone ADA modification projects, or are they solely being made as part of resurfacing or pavement projects?
In regards to DDOT, we do have our own ADA standalone construction project, and also we have our maintenance teams doing alterations and our project delivery teams doing alterations. So there's multiple ways to address ADA issues.
Okay, great. Sarah?
Yes, so our ADA transition plans do include standalone projects. We have not had a lot of standalone projects on the rights-of-way side, but we have a dedicated budget, and we do a lot of standalone projects on our physical facility side, in particular our rest areas. So we are working on the standalone projects and increasing standalone projects on the rights-of-way side, and working on a dedicated funding source, but right now things are a little iffy with the current situation.
Okay, thank you. Next question that we have is, how do your states address sidewalks on a highway that is over a local road? I know some DOTs have decided to take responsibility for sidewalks that exist on highways that happen to be over local streets.
So this is Caesar. As far as DDOT, we interact with our Federal Highway Administration when it comes to our highways. We work with our funding. We work with our engineers whenever we have a project. So in other words, we kind of do it ourselves with our dedicated funding, but we also work with Federal Highway to make sure that we are in compliance and interacting when it comes to a highway. Sometimes Federal Highway comes in with their own projects, intersects 295 or other projects, but currently we have a major project, which is the South Capitol Bridge project, and that's being done in conjoint efforts.
Thank you.
So this is Sarah, and like I mentioned, Ohio is a home rule state. So in that particular example, that would probably be inside a municipality's jurisdiction. But depending on the type of project, it might be a joint or combined effort. There usually is state and local partnerships when it comes to those types of projects.
Great, thank you. Next question is, since ADA transition plans address not only right-of-way but also other facilities, how do you suggest coordinating between agencies and departments for good coordination to address all aspects of the ADA?
All right, can you hear me again?
Yep, now we got you. Thank you.
Okay, there you go. When it comes to the district, we have a lot of private properties and agencies that need to comply under Title III. And sometimes we have a big corridor that comes in, a big corridor project. In those cases, we talk with the private owners. We let them know that we're going to come in and address sidewalk issues that under Title III they will need to address their issues. However, we engage with them and communicate with them for the whole corridor to be a successful project. Interaction is the best way. We let our engineers aware that they need to bring their plans and their proposed ideas, sectionals. We bring everything to the table when we meet with the property owners, and we bring them on board from 30% all the way to 100%, so they know what's happening and how it's going to happen.
Sarah, same question?
Yes. So within the Ohio DOT, the way that I kind of take the approach with our transition plan and self-evaluation is kind of look at it as two totally separate plans, one for the ADA assets and the rights-of-way, and the second part is for our physical facilities, which include our district headquarters, our central office, our county garages, and our rest areas. And so we were able to get some dedicated funding for those assets on the facility side. Like I said, we've been paying particular attention to our rest areas. And so that has helped with those relationships with our facilities managers. So it's all, again, it's developing those relationships on the other side of the house for that part of the plan as well. But there's unique challenges on that side of the program as well. When it's been my experience that anytime someone that doesn't work in that area or work in that office or division, they're not necessarily super happy about someone else trying to come in and poke around and basically bring their attention to things that they haven't been doing correctly. So that's a long process, but it's something that our office has worked really hard at for the last several years, and I do think that we're making really good progress to where we're able to help instead of coming across as if we're just there to give them extra work or complain about something that they've already done.
Okay. Okay, next question. What are some ways that you ensure your inventory of barriers is a living document? What potential problems have you encountered in adding to your inventory? Caesar?
This is Caesar. Oh, Sarah, go ahead.
Sorry. So we're relatively new in that process of adding new assets to our data module, our data application, but we've only been doing it for the last about 1.5 years, almost 2 years at this point. But we worked out a workflow to where each asset is assigned an inventory number. So when a project comes through, if the asset is being replaced or remodeled, I guess, then if it's being replaced, the asset number is retired and a new asset number is assigned, or if it's just being fixed or corrected, then it would keep the same inventory number. But with that project, there's a manner in which the design engineers can and construction engineers can notify our, they call our technical asset managers in the district, our TAM coordinators, and they will enter and assign a new asset number to that new curb ramp, for example. So it's all part of a workflow that was created with our data team.
Thank you.
All right.
Caesar?
This is Caesar. As I mentioned in my presentation, we definitely have a living ADA data inventory barriers. What we accomplished during our ADA data inventory barriers, one of the biggest comprehensive things that we did was to develop a form that the inspector can use on the field, whether he is collecting the data at the beginning, raw data on how it is, to when it's constructed at the end. So we gather that data. It's a historical data. It's an ID number, same as Ohio. We haven't, but we have the data. We have the pictures, and we keep the history of the pictures. You got the before and after it got constructed. You also have the attributes of that asset. For example, a curb ramp, I'll have the running slope, the cross slope, when before on the raw data, when we surveyed the first time, and the information at the end. And it's an ongoing living document. And now with the improvements to the software and new technology, our inspectors on the field can provide that data to us. So it's not a two-man team, separate standalone project. It's a 7 people at the same time, 7 inspectors on the field doing construction providing that data, or 20 inspectors on the field, depending on the amount of projects that are working that day. They can all collect the data and provide it to us. Just by letting us know that the location has been completed, you can get that data. Same thing for the designers and engineers. If you're on the design phase of a project and a planning phase of a project, you can go to the interactive map, look at your corridor, look at the location that you want to address, and know which curb ramps are non-compliant, which curb ramps are under construction, which curb ramps are compliant already. And I'm using curb ramp as an example, but everybody knows there's multiple aspects of a corridor or an intersection per se that involves ADA compliance, whether it's the accessible push button, the pedestrian signal head, the crosswalk, whether it's the curb ramp itself or the sidewalk connectivity at the end, or protruding objects, whether it's our own signs that are doing the protrusion. And I'm not even talking about the parking, because VDOT does on-street parking compliance because it's our service, it's our program. So, and passenger loading zones. So I haven't even discussed those. Those are separate. Those are operation standpoint. But that's the way to keep the data collection going. Before I forget, also, when it comes to designers and planners, they also can get cost estimates. Not only how many items are compliant, non-compliant, but also a preliminary estimate on how much would it take to fix the issue and address the issue as well. All right.
Thanks, Caesar. This is a question for Sarah. Sarah, can you talk a little bit more about the prioritization of items within your transition plan?
Sure. Our prioritization criteria was something that we came up internally. And it looks a little kind of similar to what Caesar shared. I'm not sure if our criteria is exactly the same, but we ranked our assets, our deficient assets, in low, medium, and high priorities. And then there are some additional methods that could we could manually adjust those priority levels. So, for example, if we have an asset that a curb ramp that the only deficient item is that the truncated dome is slightly worn, everything else is fully compliant, that would be a low priority deficiency or correction. But if we received a complaint or request about that, we could manually go in and update that. But the application, when the crews go out to assess the barriers, they measure and just input the data. They aren't the ones making the determination whether the asset is compliant or non-compliant or what priority level it should go in. They can add notes if there are things that they noticed on site, and we can review those. But once they enter the data into the application, a script runs overnight, and then the next day the asset either shows compliant, and it would have a dot showing that it was color-coded compliant, or if it was non-compliant on the mobile app, a red box would show around it, and we can run a report or go into the asset and see exactly what made the asset non-compliant.
Okay, thank you.
If I may add, Sharon, as Sarah mentioned, it's use and condition, but I will recommend for the person that made the question and for everybody to sit down with your engineer. If you're an ADA coordinator, sit down with your engineers, develop a team to develop that prioritization schema that best benefits the agency or addressing the physical barrier issues. Something that we did at DDOT was not only sit down for the condition aspect, that we say, hey, for example, if a curb ramp is over 8.3, but it only exceeds by 0.2%, that's a priority low. That you shouldn't be addressing the issue. But also learn from the data that you're collecting. One of the little things that we learned from the data that we collected, talking about truncated domes, is that every curb ramp that did not have a truncated dome, also had an additional issue, as in the running slope was incorrect or the cross slope was incorrect. So, and that was 97% of our curb ramps had that showed no truncated domes had an additional issue. So so now we took the prioritization schema a little higher for whenever we don't have truncated domes. Our inspectors are faster on the field. If you're collecting raw data, no truncated domes, don't collect anything else, take a picture, because we know there's another additional issue that is in a higher risk for a person with disabilities, and it's a more of a physical barrier. So I will recommend for everybody to learn from your data, involve the engineers, involve the planners on how they see the data, and also bring your ADA knowledge into the table and say this is a higher need for a person with disabilities, and then you create that prioritization of high, medium, low, because we have our matrix use and condition, but inside our matrix we do have a high, medium, low as well.
Great, thank you. This is for Cesar. Cesar, can you talk a little bit more about your public outreach efforts, especially the advisory group and the pop-up events?
So we noticed, okay, very good. If anybody's familiar with DC, we do have a high concentration of disability advocacy groups. When we were developing the ADA transition plan, starting with the advisory group, we started with the advisory group, which took every single phase. We provided information to the advisory group on every single phase of our ADA transition plan development to ensure they agreed or not agreed. We ensured that persons with disabilities were on the table. We ensured that they had an understanding of what was required for an ADA transition plan, and then we asked them what are their needs for the development of the ADA transition plan on the field. What do you want us to remove? What do you want DDOT what do you want DDOT to improve on their procedures? What do you want them on their policies that maybe not addressing your concerns? That's basically the advisory group. When it comes to public outreach, we did the traditional outreach style as well, that we send a public notice and we say, hey, we're going to be in this location asking for information. Please come in. Please join us. And when they come into this, to the public outreach, we survey first. Not only we told them about the history of the ADA and what we need to do and in order to accomplish an ADA transition plan and what the project entails of the development of the ADA transition plan, but we also ask them about their priority needs. What do you need? And that's still ongoing. That happens every year. What do you need needs to happen every year in order to have a successful ADA transition plan. Because if you're not asking what are your needs, we don't know where to go next. But in addition, one key element that we included was the pop-up events. We were at Gallaudet University, which is a school over here, a school for hard of hearing and persons with disabilities here in the district. Not only persons with disabilities, but also normal persons as well. That we were there in their homecoming, asking the same questions that we ask in the public outreach in any event. What are your needs? What are your highest concerns on the field? What are your highest concerns in the public right away? And we gathered that information and brought it back and created a report out of it. And not only a report, but we also got enough information to understand what we needed to do in our prioritization scheme in terms of location as well, according, because we divided in use and condition. I hope that explains everything.
Thank you. So our time is winding down. I want to put one last question out for both of you, which is, what has given you the biggest bang for the buck in terms of transition plan implementation? What one recommendation would you make to folks out there?
This is Sarah, and I will say unequivocally, hands down, our data collection application. Being able to show the numbers and the data, I think it was pivotal and should be a long-term sustainable solution that, like I mentioned, we were able to work in some other things that were issues for other areas. And we were able to work those into the application to make it a win-win for several areas. So definitely, without a doubt, it's the data solution.
Thank you, Sarah. How about you, Cesar?
I wanted to piggyback on the data collection, but I think the biggest win is to have that engagement from every division, whether it's ADA transition plan or not, implementation or not, having that engagement from our engineers and designers, that they know there's an issue outside already regarding ADA, and they're not afraid of knocking on the door and saying, Cesar, I need you. I need the ADA coordinator assistance. And as long as you have that full agency engagement and let them understand that there are physical barriers out there. You're not, what it may not be an issue for you is an issue for many people, multiple people, many residents. That to have that commitment from them is a key ingredient, because they understand the issue now. Having the understanding of that issue and engaging to address that issue is a key ingredient. It's the biggest win I have.
Thank you both so much. This has been a really terrific discussion. I want to thank everybody for participating and for bearing with us through our audio issues. I also just want to remind everyone that we are recording the webinar and it'll be posted in the future, so anything that you missed you should be able to access. I want to give special thanks to our speakers, Tom Everett, Cesar Barreto, and Sarah Wade. And I also want to give a big thank you to our partners at AASHTO for all their help. If anyone wants a copy of the PowerPoint slides, please email Cesar and Sarah directly. Their emails are up on the screen. And I also just want to say please register for all of our upcoming webinars. The next one is August 26th. And thank you all again. We really appreciate your interest in this really important topic. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.